Hi, I'm Gary Brown from Hatcher Advisory. I'm a chartered accountant, entrepreneur, and I love doing business. Today, I've got the pleasure to be working on this podcast with Online Prosperity, and it's going to be an amazing 20-minute segment on it, on business, on money, and wealth creation. Stay tuned, guys.
Now, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. And today, I've brought you Gary Brown, a chartered accountant who holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree with a major focus on accounting and finance. Now, Gary, welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. I've been looking at your website, Gary, and I've noticed that you've supported hundreds of businesses to make better financial decisions through targeted education and future-focused goal setting. Now, this is one thing that eludes a lot of businesses, which is financial education. Tell us a little bit about your business and sort of how you actually took this path, which is a non-conventional accounting path that other firms have taken.
Yeah. Look, we started an accounting business 7-8 years ago, my wife and I, but she wasn't my wife at the time. And we looked at the market and what we thought was lacking for the small business owners. And no disrespect to any of the accounting firms that I previously worked for, because some of them were amazing, but we just identified that there was a gap in the market with that, really, working in a partnership with the client rather than compliance and only dealing with them, once a year. So we wanted to build strong relationships with the people that we work with. And with that, we go about, helping them grow their businesses. And when you look at helping someone grow their business, you need to have something to measure it against. You need to have some goals to aspire to, whether it is to create a freedom business, whether it is to sell a business, or maybe you just want to take your business from, $100,000 worth of revenue to $500,000. We need to have something, and that's where the goal settings comes into it. So that was our method. And a lot of, we probably helped close to 1,000 individuals over the years, maybe 2,000 individuals over the years. And right now we have around 600 business group clients at the moment.
Absolutely. That's massive growth, and congratulations on obviously, the growth of the business. And also on a personal note, you ended up marrying your work colleague right there.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. She's not here to comment, so I would say that she went after me, and she might say that I went after her. I don't know, but she's not here to defend herself, so she definitely went after me.
Absolutely. That's Jenny, right?
That's Jenny, yes.
All right, Jenny, if you're listening, you have every right to ring me up, and I'll tell you everything I've been told about this story. Now, obviously, Gary, with what you've just mentioned, how you are working with about 600 businesses and also in the process helping them set their goals and educating them in the process. I've read somewhere that your clients are describing you as transformational and a true partner. Why did you take this route, especially working with people or businesses when other accountants are just there for the compliance part and just helping people submit their BAS or their GST, paperwork?
I think it goes back down to that financial literacy and understanding your numbers. So one of my missions in life is to teach financial literacy and to help people to expand their knowledge there, because I think we don't have enough education at high school or universities in that sense that do it in the real business sense. So because of that, I looked at, again, all the friends and families that I have. They were my role models growing up, and I look at why did some of them succeed in business and why did some of them fail. And we had some family members that unfortunately didn't do too well in business, and I go back to that and go, well, what should they have done differently if they knew, if they had the right information at the time? What could they have done differently? And then I go back to it, well, who was there to help support them? Because an accountant is someone that is really, really good at understanding financial numbers. But there's no point having an accountant on your team if he's talking about 2021 financial year and we're now in 2023. There's no relevance. That year is 18 months ago. I can't make a sound business decision based on what someone's telling me on data that's 18 months old. I can barely make a sound business decision on the data that someone's telling me from 3 months ago, let alone 18 months ago. So the traditional accounting model where you're, helping a client do their tax returns and it's 12 months past, the year's finished, it's been 12 months. You're just helping them tick a box with the ATO. You're not actually helping them to make better financial decisions. And because they don't get the real-time data, or they're not using the real-time data with their expert, they're not making the best decisions that they could possibly make. The difference here could be, today I was on a Zoom meeting with one of my clients and one of my brand new clients, and they've just done a purchase, and the purchase was for some equipment, and the interest rate they're paying is 20%. And I was like, oh no. And straight away I was like, did you speak to the previous accountant at this point? And they said yes. And the previous accountant said, oh, it's all a tax deduction. And I'm like, well, they're correct. It is a tax deduction, but we could have got the equipment if we, played the game a bit better, around 12, 13%. And that means that we would have that savings in interest, which means we don't need a tax deduction for it because we're not paying it in the first place. But I would prefer the money to be in the client's bank account instead of the bank's bank account. So making better informed decisions, you need to have up-to-date information, and you need the accountant, who in theory is really good at numbers, to be helping you along the way, not historical. You want them today.
Absolutely. That is actually very useful, especially in today's age where inflation is moving faster than the speed of sound, and you want to be making financial decisions on the fly. And if you've got somebody who's well vested, with your best interest, and not just somebody who's going to be ticking an ATO box, this is somebody that you would want in your corner. Now, I would suppose in you trying to educate people, you come across a lot of these false beliefs around money, which often rob people of their opportunity to maybe buy their first home or start a family, just predicated on the fact that they just think money is evil and they don't want to spend more than 2 minutes discussing money, even if it's to save their own bottom line. How do you navigate that whole, barrier where false beliefs are really prominent in our society today?
Yeah. I think about them as being money stories. So, everyone would have different money stories, and some of them would serve you and some of them wouldn't be serving you. And I think about my money stories, or the beliefs that I have from growing up and everything that I saw. And I always believed that I wanted to be a millionaire. I didn't know when I was 7 how that was going to happen, but I believed that I wanted it. And I believed that much. I'd like to say it was easy. I believed that much that I became a millionaire, but obviously a lot of hard work went into it. But I think about the stories that helped me to achieve that. And I'm one of 7. So there is 6 other siblings out there that had a similar upbringing to me, not all the same, obviously, but a similar one. And I look at the journeys that each of those siblings of mine have taken, and their money stories are different. Their money beliefs are completely different to mine. And I find that really fascinating. So I go back to when I'm having challenges with clients or people on this topic, I go back to try to understand why, and I ask probing questions about it. But at a certain point, I go back to, this is where, if it's impacting someone's life, to buying a house, growing their business, buying investment properties, becoming too successful, so they'll self-sabotage, then I go back to, look, you may need to do some work on this and do some self-education and speak to someone who's more experienced at dealing with these type of stories. Because again, some of them won't be serving people. And the big one that I hear all the time, and it frustrates me a lot when I hear it, someone will be on income of, $120,000, and they'll say there's no point earning any more money because I'm going to be paying 40 cents in the dollar in tax. And then I look at that and go, but if you weren't that extra 20K, 30K, 40K, whatever it may be, what we're talking about, but if you weren't that extra money and you paid the tax, and we took that money, the extra bit, and we invested it in property, in shares, in another business, whatever it may be, and we did that long enough, that would compound to a large sum of money. And that large sum of money could be the difference between you retiring with $500,000, retiring with $1 million, retiring with $10 million. So they're the ones that frustrate me the most, those type of stories where people don't want to earn more income because they don't want to pay a higher tax bracket of income. And they're the ones that are not serving people the most, and they're the ones that I come across most frequently.
Absolutely. Well, there's always war stories that are spoken about at dinner tables, and there's always Auntie Sally who knows everyone that has gone through any monetary problem that might ensue. You did mention something that is a very big issue, especially for business people that are creating a business that is going to be profitable and also enjoyable, the fear of success. How are business people actually sabotaging themselves, when it actually comes to creating wealth for themselves, which obviously would sustain them?
I think this goes back to an Australian culture. And in Australia, we, for whatever reason, we like to, cut down the tall poppy syndrome. We have that, we want people to succeed, but we don't want them to succeed too much. You can do well, but not too well. That guy who's driving that red Ferrari, wherever it is, I can't see any, but that guy driving that red Ferrari, he must have ripped off someone, or he must be a jerk. And the reality of that type of culture means that when an everyday person is doing well in business or in their professional career, when they're doing well in whatever they're trying to succeed at, they get to a certain point where they go, you know what, subconsciously, this is enough. I've got enough. And then they might ease off. They may take their foot off the pedal. They may stop working as hard. They may not continue to invest in themselves or in the team. And we notice that from the clients that I work with, there's different reasons that we see this happen, but we watch the trajectory of a business owner go from making $100,000 in profit to 200 to 500 to $1 million. And then once they get up to that $1 million mark, there's either one or two things will end up happening. They normally then go, this is enough. That $1 million number is enough. And then they'll say, we'll maintain it. But they never maintain it. It drops straight back down. Because as soon as they try to maintain it, things go wrong and they drop back down to maybe 300,000 or 400,000. Or they say it's not enough. And when they say it's not enough and they keep going, they keep trying to grow the business, employ more people, do better at business, then the sky's the limit. But the ones that self-sabotage because they're like, this is enough, when they just instinctively believe that they have to work harder to generate more money. But we have so many clients, and I've worked with so many people over the years that make a lot of money, but they then able to choose what they do in their business. They choose what part of the business they like to do. So just because they're now able to make more money and grow their business, they don't have to continue to work on the tools 70 hours a week. So they make those choices. The ones that are self-sabotaging are, and a tradie is a really good example. You've got a qualified tradie who's got maybe 2 or 3 apprentices below them. And each day that they are working on the tools with their hands, building something, they end up self-sabotaging because they're not going to get past the next step. They've got to employ a qualified person. They've got to employ 2 qualified people. They've got to get off the tools. And we watch them fall back into the, on the tools, off the tools, and they're always going back around and around and around in a circle. It ends up being a self-sabotage for them to get past that and always be off the tools, because they bring themselves back into it.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously this is, a catch-22, egg and chicken sort of story, as in, is it society? Is it the accountants that are not taking their role to actually educate people? Or are the people actually just self-sabotaging? Like you said, it's a cultural norm that, everybody shoots the tall poppy there. Now, in the sort of world that we live in, I mean, we've been led to believe that financial freedom is not something that you can willfully create in your life. You have to be, I mean, we've been taught that if you're going to be wealthy, it's something that happens to you when you've won the lottery or you've robbed somebody else. But the transformation that you are taking your clients through is literally people that are coming to you with maybe a shoebox full of receipts, and they walk out of your office having bought their first home and starting their sort of family. I mean, I really need to understand what switched inside of you personally to think that education is the way to go, in order for you to actually differentiate yourself in the market of Me Too, accountants out there.
I think for me, the realization was that you look at every successful business owner ever, and they would have done some form of self-education, improvement, investing in them and the team. And you look at the accounting industry, and the accounting industry is right now, typically run by all the partners of accounting firms are typical, 50, 60-year-old people working 70 hours a week. And that doesn't inspire me. So if I'm going to start a business and I'm going to look up to, these other businesses in my industry, and all of them are, working 70, 80 hours a week, and they might make a lot of money, but they're not living their best life, then I have to find a different way to do it. So way I looked at it was if all these other industries can do this really, really well, and they can create successful businesses and have the life they want to have and not have to work 70, 80 hours a week, then why can't accounting? So for that, I had to learn myself. I had to change the way that I'd been taught. I had to change my learnings as an accountant of how to do things from a business perspective. And after I changed and started developing better business acronym, then I realized it's not just me. It is the 2 million other small businesses in Australia that are not also going through this transformational learning journey. And out of the first 10 business clients that I took on back 7-8 years ago, I believe probably 8 of them are still clients. So we have majority of them would still be clients. And some of them have taken their businesses from, $100,000 revenue and are now, $4 or $5 million in the trade businesses, in the medical practices, in trade and medical, probably that's it. And I look at that and go, some of them have done it, where other ones were at the exact same level at the exact same time, had the exact same amount of money, but didn't want to self-improve. And they didn't. And they're just around the same numbers today as what they were 7 years ago. So as an accountant, we get to see the financial numbers of every industry, everyone's business. And we get to, if you do it right, you get to take the best aspects of another person's business and apply to your own business. And if it works in your business, you can apply it to other people's businesses as well. And I think that's what a true, in this case, I'm going to use the word advisor, but that's what the true advisor would do. Whereas an accountant will just give you a tax return and you'll sign it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those scary documents that you get from your accountant. I don't believe you should be afraid of hearing from your accountant. You should actually be excited that, oh wait, my money is growing. This is
Yes.
the partnership that's happening. Would you think that you took on this route simply predicated on the fact that everything is now on the cloud? And I'm just looking out here, we're in Melbourne, I don't even know which cloud has all my data. I could have shown you. I could have shown you.
Well, hopefully none that are having data breaches, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And looking at things happening these days. So I mean, what you're saying is a really intriguing and a breath of fresh air for the modern day entrepreneur that's looking to grow their business and actually partner with somebody who's also invested in their growth and is not just trying to remind them of the alphabet soup that comes after their LinkedIn credentials. All right. Now,
Yep.
if somebody is quite interested in sort of starting to work with you, Gary, what will be the first sort of step that you want to, do what you want them to do in order to
Sure.
to get started with you?
Yeah, so on www.hatch.com.au, we have a lot of content, and you'll see a lot of content on my LinkedIn page as well. So I think the first step is a journey that you personally have to take as a business owner or an investor, depending on what you're doing, or individual tax returner. The first step you have to take before working with me is actually go on that journey of self-education. See what you actually want. There's no point rocking up in a meeting with me and saying, Gary, I love what you do. Can you be my accountant? And then I actually will, what do you want from your business? What are you trying to achieve? How can we help you to achieve the goals that you're wanting to have, but you don't have any goals? And obviously we would help and talk about what that means. But I think the first step would be that understanding the self-education side of things and wanting to go down that journey. And if you're wanting to go down that journey, then on our website, there is a contact us section and you can fill in your details and I will get in contact with you once you've filled in the details. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think I'll be putting all that information right at the bottom there, just so that people get to get started. I thought maybe you would have wanted people to be a Tigers fan before you even started talking to them.
Yeah, look, I'm a huge Richmond supporter. Today I don't have my face painted, but other days I have definitely. You do win brownie points if you're a Richmond supporter. I don't really dislike any team, but I will hang some grief on you depending on what team you go for. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And if obviously people are already maybe on the self education path, because I would believe people that are on my audience and
Would
people
be.
that sort of follow the stuff that I'm doing are not just in it not to say for the money, but they're in it to create a legacy and to actually create impact. But you can't create any impact when you're broke. All right. And we
Yep.
also understand that factor in there. What sort of advice do you sort of give people that, yes, maybe they don't necessarily have to come and work with you, but what is it that they should look out for, especially the next time they have a meeting with their accountant? Or since we are getting into a new year, could it be a new look, new gym, new accountant, so to speak?
I would say right now the biggest question you've got to be asking the people, the professionals you surround yourself with, whether accountants, lawyers, marketers, whoever it may be, but you've got to ask them, what are they doing in their business? If I'm going to take advice from an accountant, then I want to know that accountant is doing really well in his own business or her business, and that they've got their money sorted. Like, Do they have investment properties? If I want to be a property developer, I want to make sure that the people that I'm working with have done developments themselves, right? I don't want to work with an accountant that's never done a property development, but them be my accountant, because I don't want them to use the theory that they've learned to do it. I want them to have done it themselves, so they've also got extra tips and tricks. I want the marketing agency that I work with in my business, shout out to Pixel Palace, I want them to have an amazing brand themselves. If they don't have an amazing brand, why do I want to pay them to make my brand amazing, right? So firstly, I would say, like right now, we're in a new financial year, let's just review who your experts are. Who are the people that you're relying on for support, and how are they going in their businesses, and just fact check that a little bit. And then getting more specific around the account. And for me, I want people to come to me and be like, Gary has, done property. He's done shares. He's got a business. He's done a new fit out in his office. So if you ask him any questions about a fit out, he'll know the answers at the moment. I want the accountant to be more knowledgeable than what me, the customer, is. That's what I want. And that's what I think everybody should be striving for, and moving away from that transactional value type of relationship. I want the relationship that I have with all the professionals that I work with in my business. I can get on the phone, I can call them up, and I don't feel bad if I call them on a sad day. As long as it's not work related, I wouldn't call them on a sad day, but I can call them up and ask them how their family's going. That's the type of relationship that I want to be building with all my advisors, and especially my accountant.
Absolutely. And I believe, if you can have a a mutual beneficial relationship with somebody that you're working with, then both of you are well vested in either business success. Now, like you mentioned, it seems like you just don't work with anybody else. And if you're listening and watching this show right now, you want to do your part in growing your business as well, and actually making sure that you have invested in your own personal growth. That way, when you do partner with Gary and the team at Hatcher Advisory, you also would have clarity within your business that will actually help you transform your business into a thriving venture. And obviously, we all know that gives you the security you deserve and the freedom you actually crave. Now, Gary, I could go on and on about stuff that's happening in the marketplace right now, how people are, paying more than they should be paying on their, tools and everything else. We've already established that the best way to get in touch with you is, using your website, which I will indicate on the bottom, of the website and in the show notes there. Would there be anything else that I sort of jumped just because of my own limiting beliefs, being told that money doesn't grow on trees and things of that nature, that I have skimmed and have not touched on, that you might just want to give as a last remark today there, Gary?
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for the prompt. I think most people in business that are struggling to put money away, and they're living that paycheck to paycheck, or invoice to invoice, or even the wage earners, I think that the first part of being successful from a wealth perspective is to start putting your profit or your wage, a percentage of it, away into a separate bank account. So what I would encourage the listeners here to do, even if you are earning $400 a week and you're putting yourself through uni, is to determine the percentage of your profit or your wage and to put that in a separate bank account. And, times were a little bit different when I was at uni, 10, 12 years ago. And what I would suggest is that I was able to hex my university fees, and I was I chose to have employment. So I chose to work at a nightclub. I chose to work at an accounting firm, and I made choices that gave me more money in my bank account while I was going to university to pay the bills and to do everything, because I was living out of home. So I had to. And what I was able to do was, between the first, being an adult, so between 18 and I think I bought my first property at 23 or 24, is I was able to put a percentage of my wages away, so that by the time I came out of university, I had a good amount of money put away. I did my first 2 years worth of full-time employment. I think I had 30 or 40K saved up, and I bought my first house. Obviously I used the bank and I leveraged, and I played the wealth creation game, and that's what I did. But more recently, fast forward to today, more recently I sold it, and I turned 30, 40 grand into 400 grand. So the first step, or the best thing to do, regardless of how much money you make, regardless of how much profit you make in the business, is even do 1%. It only takes 1%. Even if you put 1% away and you do that for a year, and then you revisit it and put another 1% or 2% away the following year, and you just start doing that mentality, you will be able to start building up the money. It might be slow, but you will be able to do it. And once you start getting those wins on the board, that's when some really powerful compounding things can happen in life. And that's what I'd recommend all the listeners out there to start doing. Even if, again, you're struggling week to week, you just start with that 1%.
Absolutely. That is beautiful. And I think it's Mike. I was trying to think of the guy who wrote the Profit First book.
Yep.
And also it is a universal financial education staple that you want to pay yourself first. And if you can grow, it's not the amounts that you put away, but it's the act of you actually thinking of yourself first. I mean, the government takes their tax first without even asking any questions.
Correct.
And if the people that are taking money away from you are not taking a day off, why should you be doing that to yourself? Now, Gary, I noticed there's so much that revolves around this whole money and creation of wealth thing. I think we should actually create a series and see how we can debunk all of these mysteries. I can't thank you enough for your time, your knowledge, and just your generosity in sitting with us here today. And just, even if we haven't really gone into depth with money, knowing that whatever advice was given on this show today is just of a general nature, so people shouldn't go in and start canceling their subscriptions with their accountants predicated on what they heard on the show today. I absolutely thank you, and I'm grateful for the time we've spent together today, Gary.
No worries. Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it, and I would be happy to come back and do some more episodes on a couple of those topics that we've covered, so we can go into a little bit more detail and I can give some more value to the audience, because it's what I love to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.